Ravens flock, what's going on? I hope everybody's having a good week so far. So I'm back with another off-season video, and over the past couple days, some very interesting developments have been going on in the NFL. So the first thing that kind of shocked many people, including myself, is star defensive end Myles Garrett, a guy who, in my opinion, is the best defensive player in football. He requested a trade from the Browns, but also in addition to that, um, wide receiver Cooper Kupp, the wide receiver who he's not really a star these days. He's kind of been banged up and his star power has kind of diminished over the past year and a half, 2 years. But a former star receiver who won the Triple Crown just 2 years ago, Cooper Kupp. Right now, the Los Angeles Rams are announcing that they are shopping him and they're looking to trade him. And many Ravens fans, they're looking at these two situations and they're getting very excited, and they think that maybe there's a chance we could get these people. I'm gonna say later in the video if I think it's realistic if we could get these guys or not, but it's still an interesting thing to see the path that these two players are on right now. So in the case of Myles Garrett, his situation, honestly, I kind of feel bad for him, even though I know he's on the Browns. So because there are rivals, we really can't have any emotions for him. But I do kind of feel bad for Myles in the situation that he's in. Myles is in a situation that I want us to avoid with Lamar, where it's you have this once in a generation player at this specific position and you're wasting his prime. I've said several times in different videos, especially with the way our season ended, I've said several times that I really don't want to see a scenario where we end up looking like the Indianapolis Colts after Andrew Luck, or the Panthers after Cam Newton, or right now the Giants after Saquon Barkley, whatever the case may be. Just, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to see us in a scenario where we had this once in a generation player who was clearly one of the best in the league and definitely one of the best at his position, top 5 easily, top 3, and we just squander his prime. I don't want to see us fall into that same trap with Lamar, and that's why I get so frustrating when our seasons keep ending the same exact way. But the Browns are doing the same thing to Myles Garrett right now, where they've pretty much wasted his prime. He's done so much. He's had 4 straight seasons of 14 plus sacks, the only person in history to do that. He's the Browns all-time leader in sacks. He's gotten to 100 sacks in the 6th fastest time of any player in NFL history. His accomplishments speak for themselves, but understandably so, he wants to get out of Cleveland right now. The Browns, they have a pretty talented roster, but it's still a dumpster fire because they completely botched the quarterback situation. Objectively speaking, they would have been better off keeping Baker Mayfield. Even though Baker's inconsistent, they still would have been better off keeping Baker Mayfield compared to what ended up happening with Deshaun Watson. That's been, again, a dumpster fire isn't even a good enough phrase to describe just how badly that deal worked out for them. And I'm not against players getting fully guaranteed deals. I just don't think somebody as overrated as Deshaun Watson should have been the one to get that deal. But it's neither here nor there at this point. Myles Garrett wants out, and Cooper Kupp, I don't think Cooper wants out, but the Rams, they've already replaced him. They brought in Puka Nacua. Puka has balled out, and it's clear that they want to move on from Cooper while they still feel like he has a reasonable amount of trade value. Now, both of these guys are making a lot of money. Cooper Kupp, he signed in 2022. He signed a 3-year extension worth $80 million. His cap hit this upcoming season will be $20 million. His contract doesn't end until about 2027. And Myles Garrett, his contract is $125 million, and his contract doesn't end until 2026, so pretty much the end of next year. And he's going to be more or less a $20 million cap hit, just like Cooper Kupp is. I don't think it's realistic that we get either one of these guys, but out of the two of them, I think it would be more realistic to get Cooper Kupp. But again, I don't think we're gonna go after either one of these guys, to be honest with you. So I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. These are still two good players. In the case of Myles, it's like you're talking about, again, in my opinion, I think Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in football. And the chances of us getting him is slim to none. This is a guy who is the face of his franchise, who is clearly their best player, and he's the heart and soul of their team. Browns aren't going to give him up unless you give up a massive amount of compensation. Like, you would have to give up multiple first-round picks. And I had the same discussion a few months ago when people were talking about getting Max Crosby. I'm like, even though the Raiders are struggling, they're not stupid. Like, they're not going to just hand over the face of their franchise, who's their best player. Like, at that point, you might as well just have a complete fire sale and just get everybody out of there and just start from scratch. Because like these players, these are defensive players that actually make a difference. So even though I would like for us to get Myles Garrett, it's not realistic, because we all know EDC has an addiction to draft picks. It's not a secret. We all know it. We've been talking about it, but nobody wants to call it an addiction, and I'm calling it an addiction. EDC is addicted to draft picks. He has a very serious problem. He's not going to part with draft picks just to get Myles Garrett, especially not the draft capital that would be necessary to get Myles Garrett of all people. You're talking about a guy who, like, if I'm the GM for the Browns, I'm not entertaining any offer that's less than 2 first-round draft picks. That's the bare minimum. Like, he's that caliber of player. You would have to give up multiple first-round picks and maybe even a couple players to get the Browns to say, you know what, fine, let's do it. Like, the Browns have already announced they have no plans of trading Myles Garrett. Now, maybe Myles, he decides to protest and sit out the season. I don't think he will, but in all likelihood, he's not going anywhere. But even if he was, it's a very low chance that the Browns are going to trade him in the division. Now, it's not impossible, because there have been teams who have traded with teams in their division before. Even recently, like, people forget, the tight end TJ Hawkinson, he was on the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions traded him to the Minnesota Vikings. Like, so it's not that players don't get traded within the division, but for a player at the caliber of Myles Garrett, I just don't think the Browns would be so willing or so willing and happy to just hand over a real game changer and just give them to us to help us have a better shot at the Super Bowl. And I do believe that he would give us a better chance to go to the Super Bowl. He absolutely would. Like, my biggest issue with this defense is we have a bunch of overrated, overpaid players who are not closers, and who in key moments when we need them, they make no impact on the game. Like, they can't make plays, they can't force turnovers. A guy like Myles Garrett, he's all of those things. Like, he is all of those things. Like, I've watched Browns games where Myles Garrett will go out there, get 2 strip sacks, another sack in addition to that, so 3 total sacks, have a batted pass at the line of scrimmage, so it's a pass deflection, and on top of that, he'll go out there and then jump over the entire defensive line to block a field goal. Myles Garrett did that in one game. I'm not making that up. Like, just a few months ago, a year ago, whatever, when the Browns played the Colts, like, this all happened, and Myles Garrett had like a beat up foot. He had an injured foot and did that. So just to speak to the caliber of player he is. So, I know Ravens fans are excited, but I don't want us to get our hopes up, because, again, neither one of these guys are realistically coming here. Like, maybe Cooper Kupp is more realistic, because the Browns have already said they don't want to trade Myles Garrett, whereas the Rams have already announced they are trying to trade Cooper Kupp. So maybe that would be more realistic, especially because Cooper Kupp, he's been hurt the past couple seasons. He hasn't been as productive. Puka Nacua took his spot. And so now it's a scenario where it's like maybe you could get him for a cheaper deal. Like maybe you could trade like a 4th round draft pick for him, possibly. I don't know if again, EDC has an addiction to draft picks, so I just don't know if that's gonna actually happen. I would like to see it happen. I would like to see it. Cooper Kupp, even though he's a slot receiver, he's still a big body receiver that Ravens fans have wanted. He's about 6'2", 6'3". I think he weighs about 215, 220. So yeah, he's a strong dude. He's not super fast, but like most receivers, he's fast enough. Like he's a solid option that I think would definitely add to this room, especially because one thing that he has going in his favor is he's very clutch. We saw that when the Rams won the Super Bowl. Like they gave Cooper Kupp MVP for that Super Bowl for a reason. Like he came up very clutch. Like he carried that team. He carried Matt Stafford. And I would like to see him on this team as well. I think it could work out. I don't think he would come here and put up 1,000 yards necessarily, but maybe he would. I don't know. Maybe, you never know, right? But I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case because of how banged up he's been. But it's still fun to imagine what could be, which is why I understand why Ravens fans are looking at Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp. Either one of them, I think, if they came to the team, they would help significantly. I would like to see it. I would like to see either one of them, but again, realistically, I don't think it's going to be the case just because we all know how this team operates at this point. They're not like, again, EDC has an addiction to draft picks. I'm going to keep saying that. Like, he just does. So I don't see a scenario where we make an aggressive move to get one of these guys. Now, if we do, I'll be shocked. I will be shocked. If we do, I'll be shocked, and I'll give EDC credit. Like, hey, man, like he got out of his comfort zone and he made a very aggressive move that may be the move that could help put us over the top. But we'll see. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Do you think it's realistic that we get Myles Garrett or Cooper Kupp? And if we got either one of them, do you believe that they would be the missing piece to put us over the top?